Hello and welcome to Football Discussion Daily. My name is Joe. I'm here with the co-host
EGO.
CGO. We are releasing this on the 9th of June 2026. Quick reminder, please like us, subscribe us. We release every single day, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. Today we are discussing World Cup Group K. We have a couple more groups and only a couple more days until the World Cup. In World Cup Group K, we have Portugal, Colombia, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Uzbekistan, who was their first World Cup. I'll go through, and George, let's start with Portugal. I was surprised, actually, George, that Portugal, before the turn of the millennium, actually haven't qualified for most World Cups before the year 2000. I 98 is the first World Cup I remember. Portugal was not in it, but they've qualified for every single World Cup since. They made a semifinal or two. They've won a Euro. They got to the finals of another Euro. Of course, they've had two players win the Ballon d'Or. In my opinion, one of the best midfielders in the world right now is Portuguese. This team, they've had some superstars. They still have some very good players. I think that they will probably be hoping to make a huge run. Question, George, specific question. Do you think Ronaldo starts every game in this tournament? He's 41 years old, obviously top 5 player of all time, but he's 41. What do you think, George?
Joe, we all know that Ronaldo is somebody who is very egoistic, and most times it's always very difficult for the coach to put him on the bench. Most coaches feel that his influence on the field plays a major role. So it's not about maybe having the strength to play for 90 minutes. The coach believes that this guy just have to play. So I don't see Ronaldo sitting on the bench. It will be very difficult for the coach to put Ronaldo on the bench. That's one of the things I foresee. I don't see Roberto Martinez putting him on the bench. That's going to be very difficult. The only thing he might do, he might pull him out maybe if he feels he's tired. But I think Ronaldo will most likely start most of the games. That's what I foresee.
I will say, for Ronaldo, you're absolutely right from a club perspective. Ronaldo has all the ego in the world when it comes to his exit at Manchester United. There's times where, you could just see the initial look of disappointment in his face when a teammate scores when he could have scored. Things like that happen at the club level. I've been really impressed over the last 20, 25 years. Ronaldo's career is crazy long, about how team seems to set that apart for Portugal. He does seem to be more of a leader, more accept the role of I'm 41. I can still do some things, but I can't do everything. He doesn't try and do everything. He doesn't need to. I remember the Euro final he was on the bench for, and he was 100,000,000% happy that his team won. He did not care that he did not contribute to that game, at least on the field. So I do feel like he's a different personality. I do feel like he's still, for 20 minutes, absolutely a great player to bring on. I feel like he's going to be a liability if he has to play 90 minutes, 7 games, 7 games in a row. But we'll see. This Portugal team, too, has a lot of talent. I'm just looking at their midfield. Their midfield's going to be Neves, Vitinha, Bernardo Silva. Probably Neves, Vitinha, and Bruno Fernandes. And they're going to have guys on the bench like Matias Nunez, guys like Bernardo Silva. So they have just a whole ton of talent. They have 3 forwards who are all starting on top clubs in Europe. They, if anything, their weakness is probably a goalkeeper, but their goalkeeper isn't a slouch either. This is a very strong team on paper, George.
But I won't. You can't say their goalkeeper is not good enough. Diogo Costa is a very good goalkeeper. One of the highly rated goalkeepers. So I don't think goalkeeping is going to be a problem.
I said if I had to pick a weakness, it'd be goalkeeper. But it's not. This team is very strong on paper. Very little holes on paper. It's a matter of how much they come together and chemistry. Because again, exactly. I'm rating all these players from a club perspective. I've seen almost all these guys play several games this year. They're all fantastic players. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily come together when you have to practice and get ready for a tournament. Sometimes it really does. It's a matter of putting it all together.
You are very correct. It's not all about having a star-studded team. The most important thing is playing cohesively, playing with chemistry, playing as a unit. If that is lacking in a team, no matter how star-studded team you have, you will still be knocked out. by a team that is mostly made up of maybe a little bit average players or even average players, if they are more united, more cohesive in the way they play, they will knock you out. I'm also surprised that in the 21st, I mean, the 20th century, Portugal only featured at the World Cup just twice, which was in 1966 and 1986. So, and the best performance they've ever had at the World Cup was in the 20th century, which was in 1960s. They have debuted at the World Cup, which was hosted by England, where they finished third place. You know, I'm sure you know about the man they call a Subio, who was the highest goal scorer. He's a legend when you talk about the Portuguese football. So I think that has been their best performance. Football has really developed very well in Portugal. We are hoping that this time around, at least Portugal will really compete very well, because the last World Cup, we all knew what happened. They were knocked out in the quarterfinals by Morocco. So that tells you, and you know, most of these players were even in that, they featured in that competition. So what it tells you is that it's not enough for you to have quality players. If you are not united, you are not playing cohesively, a team like Morocco,
Sometimes
like the 22, can knock you out.
sometimes it's a matter of luck. I mean, like I think that Portugal team, if they played that, no credit to that Morocco team. If those two teams play 100 times, Morocco wins 20, and Portugal win 80. I watched that. I remember watching that game, and it was again credit to Morocco. They scored, and Portugal didn't. But I do feel like Portugal. Probably was still a better team. It's just sometimes the better team doesn't win, and it does take a lot of luck to win a World Cup on top of talent, on top of cohesiveness. All of that is true. George, let's move on to the next team. This is Democratic Republic of Congo. They have several players playing around Europe, several players in the Premier League. They have Yohan Wissa, who played on the best team in Europe. That's, of course, Brentford. They have not qualified for many World Cups. This is their first World Cup in
Since
I'm looking
1974.
1974. Wow.
Yeah.
But they've had several quality players. A lot of their best players have been born in France. Because a lot of immigration happened over there. They might be a team that's happy to be here. George, have you ever seen these guys in AFCON? Have they been competitive? Have you had perspective on how they play as a unit? Because again, I'm looking at these guys individually. I recognize a lot of these names, a lot of quality players. What have you seen in AFCON when you've seen these guys play against your Nigerian team?
Honestly, this DRC Congo team is a very good team. Credit must go to their coach, Sebastian Desabre. The man has really done very well. You will notice since he took over the uh, the coaching job in DRC, the team has really been very competitive. They've really been progressing. Remember, DRC knocked out Nigeria in the African playoff. In short, they knocked out Cameroon in the semi-final, and then they defeated Nigeria via penalty in the final of the African playoff, and then they went to the intercontinental playoff, and then they also got victory against I think Jamaica. So the team is a good team. I'm happy that at least since 1974 they are able to qualify for the World Cup. Even though in 1974 they never scored any goal. In short, their debut at the World Cup was very terrible because they lost all their three games. Their first game against Scotland they lost 2-0. Yugoslavia they lost 9-0, and then against Brazil they lost 3-0. So it was a very big disaster for them. So what it shows that DRC haven't scored any goal at the World Cup. Then they were calling them Zahe before they later changed their name to Democratic Republic of Congo. So hopefully this time around, with the quality of players they have, and the players like Yohan Wissa, the players like Cedric Bakambu, I
Noah
want to believe.
Siddiqui, I've been really impressed with Noah Siddiqui this
Yes,
year.
yes.
I know that whole Sunderland team has had very blew people out of the water in terms of they qualified for Europe first season up. So Noah Siddiqui, I think he played most games. I forget how many, but every game I watched at Sunderland, he was on the pitch. He's not a guy who does anything crazy. He doesn't do anything highlight reel, but he can control. He's a midfielder. We're talking. He can control a game. He can do anything. So I think he's a great midfielder.
So one thing I like about Noah Sediki is exceptional energy, very energetic, when it comes to being athletic, very athletic when it comes to carrying the ball, very good. And he was one of those players that I rated very high in the Sunderland team and the just completed season in the Premier League. So I want to believe this is also an opportunity for him, somebody who is 21 years old, playing with such confidence. It amazes me a lot. So this World Cup is an opportunity for him to showcase himself, and possibly, if he does very well, I'm sure bigger clubs will come for his signature. So it's an opportunity for him to showcase himself. And also remember, we have Aaron Bissaka, who played for West Ham.
Got
Unfortunately,
relegated.
they got relegated, but that guy is a very good player. I love his pace. He's very pacey.
I'm looking at him. I can't believe he's only 28 years old. I just feel like he's had a whole career arc already, where he was great at Crystal Palace, where he was decent at Manchester United, now West Ham for a couple of years. With him though, hey, he's great leadership. He's a guy who can control a defense, but he also is a guy who, the reason he didn't work out at Manchester United is because he doesn't really offer that much offensively, and that's still true. He is a leadership guy. He is a guy who's great defensively. He's a guy who, like Kyle Walker's the same thing. He doesn't offer anything offensively. He's just a little bit better defensively than Wan-Bissaka. But Wan-Bissaka is fantastic, and I think that it brings the leadership that's kind of needed to get a new, a fresh group of players ready for a World Cup like tournament. So I think this team, they are new, but I think that they will make some noise.
Yes.
And George, let's talk about a World Cup actual debutante, Uzbekistan. And George, trivia question: what Nigerian international was born in Uzbekistan?
I remember there was a time you asked me that question, and that was Osaze Peter Odenwege. So
Peter Odemwingie was born in Uzbekistan. He's a Nigerian international, and he's a little bit old for this World Cup. But we also have Manchester City. Kushanov
yes,
is on Uzbekistan. This is their first World Cup. Again, George, it's great that the World Cup is expanding to more nations, but this is a team that probably would not qualify in a 32-team World Cup. And again, it's a good thing for the global unity, but in terms of their expectation, they're happy to be here. They have to be, like, their fans. If they only lose 1-0, they're gonna be happy. They're gonna be like, yeah, we held them for 80 minutes. I we're looking at their teams. I don't recognize too many players. Of course, I recognize Kushanov. I looked at the careers of a couple of these guys. A couple of these guys have played at like Turkey and some minor leagues around Europe, but none of them has been an absolute all-star. Kushanov is by far, in terms of club career, the best. And honestly, I've not been that impressed with Kushanov at Man City. He's a good player. He's not a great player, in my opinion. They bought Gahey for a reason.
well, the issue is that he's a young player, somebody who is just 22. Uh, I think he's above average. If we want to be fair to him, he has not been that bad. It's just that, some of his tackles, which he has really gotten away with in the Premier League, he has to really improve on it. But he's a good player. Just that sometimes he loses concentration. That's just the issue. But I feel as he keeps growing, I want to believe his game will improve very well. One very interesting thing about the Uzbekistan is that they are being coached by a World Cup winner, Fabio Cannavaro. I don't know if you know him, the Italian legend who was very good in defending. I think he was the Ballon d'Or winner for that year.
He's the last
Yes.
defender to win the Ballon d'Or.
Yes. So he is the coach of this team, and they normally call them the White Wolves. So I don't know how they are going to act like wolves when they get to this competition. But at least this team, they have few players that are playing in Europe. I think they have a guy they call Heldor Shomorodov, who plays. I think he's a player of Roma, but he plays in Turkey, and then he'll be banking on Kuzenov to be in the heart of the defense. So, but I'm not having too much expectation from them because this is a team that they are making their debut at the World Cup. I feel it's an opportunity for them to get exposure, at least get to play against teams like Portugal. They will be able to test their strength against Colombia and then Democratic Republic of Congo. So I'm not really expecting so much from them. It's a good way for them to get exposure and for some of their players to showcase the talent they have.
Yeah.
That's what I see with this team.
That George. And last team is Colombia, and I didn't realize this, George. They've had one World Cup knockout win in their history. That was that 2014 James Rodriguez goal. I think it was against but it was they won in 2014. That's the only knockout win in their history. They've gone in and out of qualifying for World Cups. They have a good mix of experienced players in Europe and newer players, guys who more unknowns, guys who have played most of their career in South America, at least unknowns to us as North American and Africans. Um, Luis Diaz probably on their team probably had the most accomplished club season last season. Of course, he won England 2 years ago. He won in Germany last year, got to the World Cup semifinals. He had a fantastic season last year. Nobody doubts his quality. Of course, his work rate is fantastic. They have James Rodriguez, who's playing in MLS right now. He's had a fantastic career, and he's not really had a great club. He's had a good club career, but his international career has been fantastic because he's
Yes.
really good at these long range finishes that don't really translate that well to the club game. But they're really awesome at an international level where you kind of have a little bit more space to do those type of things. And so what that doesn't necessarily fly at Real Madrid is great for Colombia. So he had a fantastic World Cup, got him signed himself for Real Madrid a couple years ago, and he's bounced around quite a bit now, playing in MLS and 34 years old. George, do you feel like this team has? What do you feel like the weakness of this Colombia team is, and what do you think their expectations should be?
This Colombia team, I'm really expecting so much from them, especially having players like Luis Diaz in that team. I'm sure Luis Diaz, his presence is really going to really help this team. And then, like you rightly said, James Rodriguez has really been very good when it comes to playing for the national team. The problem he has had with clubs, some of them have been attributed to indiscipline because I knew at some point guy had at least he had a lot of qualities. So you expect a player like him to play for to keep playing for top clubs. I knew at some point I think he played for Real Madrid for some time, but he couldn't really sustain it, and then he left. At some point he went to Everton, and he also left Everton. I think he had some issues at Everton. So his problem at club level have somehow
James
been attributed
Rodriguez,
to
just the general position of a number 10 has changed so much the last 20 years. Like 20 years ago, your Ronaldinho was an elite player, and now your 10s, if you can pass, that's great, but your 10s are more expected to run down and chase and be defensive too. Like De Bruyne, his entire career, I think, is what that 10 has moved into. Where, yes, he Kevin De Bruyne is an amazing passer, but if you watch him play, he's also running all over the place. He's dictating play. He's not only passing, and if you can't basically operate the team defensively and offensively, it's really difficult to do it as a 10. A lot of teams don't even play with 10s anymore. You look at like a Liverpool last year. They won the league with three midfielders who were workhorses in Gravenberch, McAllister, and um, uh, uh, Sabaslai. All those guys are none of them really played like James Rodriguez does. And so this concept of a playmaking number 10 who doesn't really need to work defensively, unless you're Lionel Messi, that just doesn't work in today's day and age. And so I think James Rodriguez has kind of fell off due to that. But he's still in the international game. It is different, and he does add a lot of value in that position. So we'll see how much he plays. He's 34, playing in MLS, so maybe they'll play other players and bring him on as a super sub. We'll see. Um, George, I'm going to close out with our standard questions. And number one is um, between Uzbekistan and um, and DRC, which one do you feel like has a better chance to advance to the next round? Um, will Portugal get to the semifinals? They've had a couple semifinal runs under Ronaldo. Will Ronaldo play every game? And number three, Colombia. They haven't won one knockout game in their history. Do you feel like they're going to win another knockout round? Let us know your thoughts, and thank you for listening.